summary. So in our last session, we had neglected to put in 28 and 29. So that was there for council's information. And I didn't know if we wanted to, Rob, was there something you wanted to run through on that in the agenda? If we go back to that screen first, or did we want to just go right into 7.3?
We should maybe just run through the information that we've attached. So there were a couple of pieces that I added after our original budget deliberation. The first was it had been correctly pointed out that in the documentation I provided, it didn't have the forecast numbers 27 to 29. So I've included that with the session. So council essentially just, as part of the budget approval, will acknowledge them as the forecast for the future years. There is no approval with them. So by accepting them as the forecast, it doesn't commit us to anything. It just shows that we've done some work to forecast what the future could look like. But those numbers are quite soft. We don't have a good ability to look into the future. So we have some good assumptions that we've made about that, but they're not real solid numbers. So they are a required part of the budget presentation. So they're there for council's information. And when we do budget approval in operating, we accept them as our forecasts. The other thing that I included was, pardon me, I gotta change glasses here. All right, the other thing I included there was the community-related organization presentations. So back September 23rd, I believe it was, we had 6 groups from the public come in, do 3-year presentations to council. All of them were asked to provide both financial result information as well as a 3-year budget. And that it incorporated any of the requests they had of council for that period of time. I attached the 6 presentations that I had from the groups, as well as the link to the meeting where those groups made their presentations, because there were some details. Some of the groups just provided the paperwork of the budget, the 3-year budget, but the actual narrative piece was provided verbally to council in that meeting. So I figured with that information, council would be able to get either, for some of you, a refresh of what that information was presented, and for some of you who weren't there at the time, to kind of see those presentations firsthand. So that information was included because the amount of time that had gone by, it was felt that council, in order to make the light switch decisions, would need that additional information. So that was the additional pieces that we provided for council to be able to move into the light switch exercise. So we had previously in the budget deliberations, we'd run through an initial time, we'd made some preliminary adjustmts. During our last budget deliberations, council, we had zeroed out those light switches, provided a copy for council to do some individualized reflection on them, and with the intention of resuming that activity today. So that is the presentation piece that I have up on the screen for council. So this is the one. Currently, all the light switch decisions are set to deferred, but as council goes through to make those decisions and has those deliberation discussions, I'll track and update these as we go. They are linked live to a series of tax estimations. So I will caution council and anybody watching the presentation that these are estimates. We can't guarantee that any of these rates will be precise to the penny. We've done our best to get really darn close. But the examples we've provided should give council an idea of how their current light switch set is affecting taxes in general across a section, broad cross section of the municipality. So if council is prepared, I would certainly ready to track your decisions about the light switches.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
Mr. Mayor, just to bring you back to, and council back to item 7.1, if there is a recommendation there, if council was willing and ready to provide that recommendation for 7.1.7.2, and then we can go into the light switch exercise for 7.3 based on Rob's discussion, if there was any questions. Otherwise, if we could get the recommendations for 7.1.7.2, and then we can get into 7.3.
All right, thank you, Councillor Antoinette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can make the motion for 7.1. I move that council accept the report on the 2027 to 2029 operating forecasts for information.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Father in favor.
All right, carried. On to item 7.2. Councillor Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm ready to make that motion, if everybody's okay with that. That council accept the report on the presentations from community-related organizations for information.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, and 7.3, that would be the light switch exercise. Mr. Tebow.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we can go ahead into 7.3, and Rob will make adjustments as needed.
There you go. I'm pretty sure Joanne can see the light switch exercise. Can you see that, Councillor Sorensen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So I did have some notes on some of these. If council needed help on some of the previous pieces, but otherwise, if council just wants to kind of run through these, get a consensus of where you'd like to have the light switch set initially, then we can have a look at kind of where council sits when we get through the switches.
All right, thank you. So the first is Communities in Bloom. Is that right?
Yeah, so Communities in Bloom, what I can tell you is that they had no increase in their request for 2026. They did have increases of $500 in 27 and 28. There had been some discussion with council about whether council was comfortable approving a 3-year commitment to the community-related organizations, but that our practice has been to ask them to come in with a 3-year budget presentation. So that's what they've provided. But yeah, essentially the light switch is for the 2026 value, which is 0, but administration would appreciate some direction as to whether or not council will be just looking at their 2026 request, or if all 3 years of their request would be granted.
All right, we get preference there. Councillor Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go with it if it's been our practice in the past. I mean, we've asked these, they're planning their budgets 3 years in advance too. I would agree with honoring them.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Councillor Sparks?
And I'm the opposite, whatever council decides, but I prefer to just focus on 2026 at this point. Just focus on those numbers because the other numbers aren't in front of us. They're not here on this, and so if it's 0, I just prefer to focus on what we have in front of us right here and go from there and deal with next year. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
Yeah, so I think maybe something that could be contemplated on both of those fronts is administratively, this exercise looks at 2026 only. But if council says, you want to look at these ones in future years, then administratively, we would just make sure that we bring 2027 back in next year's exercise. And so it will still be here if that's what council would like to do. I think that might solve both concerns.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I think that makes it a lot more effective and efficient for all concerned, if everybody's in agreement with that. We're good. Councillor Sorensen also? Okay with that?
I would agree just to do 2026.
26, okay. Okay, you guys are good with that? Okay, all right. So the 0, I guess that's an easy one. Except the 0. We're okay with that? Yeah. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
If council would like, I can kind of steer the conversation on as you make
You got the
those.
list,
Yeah.
so you go ahead,
Okay.
yeah.
So the next operating business case was the Tank 77 Museum request. Tank 77 Museum requested a $16,800 increase. Increase in 2026, 15 and 2020, or we'll just leave it at the 26 amount, $16,800.
And the current budget is round about that now, is it not? 13, yeah, so over 100%. That's a big increase for sure. So any other thoughts on that? Councillor Firth?
I'm not comfortable with an increase that large. Like was stated, it's over 100% increase. I believe in their presentation they talked about that they were using their own reserves. And so I think that if they have reserves to use, then I would be more comfortable deferring that request this year.
All right, yeah, I would agree as well. Mr. Tebow?
I did also want to remind council that there is a council budget, and I'm not suggesting that that has to be used in this case, but the request is one thing. We have the ability to plug in an alternative number, and council can then promote a different number than the full amount asked for, just so that everyone know what we have there in the pink is something that council can decide on a different number altogether.
All right, we're all in agreement, deferring that? Yeah. Okay.
All right. The next operating business case was the Taborn District Handy Bus Association. The Handy Bus had requested a 2026 increase of $11,200. In the original budget deliberations, council had elected to smooth their 3-year commitment so that it was the same dollar amount each year at $7,100. So the question is, would this be promoted or not, and at what value?
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
I would be comfortable promoting this one if the rest of council agrees that smoothing, like breaking it out so it's even amounts over the 3 years. Taborn District Handy Bus is our only provider of public transportation, and I think it's a necessary service in our community. So I would be comfortable promoting this one.
All right, thank you, Councillor Rumpert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am in agreement with Councillor Firth. They are in a strong financial position, but it is in that position so they could purchase a new bus. And I can see the ups and downs of them having that money to do that, but it is nice that they have such a good budget that they are making a 10-year plan to keep their resource going. And going to Councillor Firth's comment too, it's our only transportation for public that we have, so I can agree, I like smoothing it out, so I'll agree with Carly, or Council First.
Okay. All right, we're all on the same page with that one.
Can I just ask a question then? To
Councilor
Councilor
Sorensen, yep.
Renfro?
Pardon me?
Is this just to save for the new bus, like for a future year, like 10, 15 years down the road?
I think the comment was to me, and I think the comment was, are you asking if they're asking for the increase for a new plan going forward for a bus? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's correct.
There's been discussions both ways. Costs are going up, or, they may have to keep buses longer than 10 years. They have seen the bus price from, 10 years ago, and then if you go 6 years prior to that, so 16 years ago, bus price has went up. I mean, if it keeps going up at that price, they won't be able to even afford the next one because it will become too expensive. But yeah, they're doing that to make a plan. They're very prudent with their money. So yeah, they're doing it to make a plan. Yeah.
And thank you, Councilor Sparks.
So this,
You go ahead, sorry.
I was just asking if this money then isn't for actual operation during the year, it's just to save for a future vehicle.
They do have operational expenses, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that's the plan they did to purchase this last bus. I don't, over the next few years, they'll have to maybe tweak that plan because prices are going up. So some of it maybe, some of it not. It's hard to answer that 100%, Councillor Sorensen.
all right, Councilor
Okay.
Sparks.
I just had it written down here, there's half on that 11,256, that's all. Just, I know it's an important thing, but I was just gonna, to smooth it out, just to cut it in half, is all. But, I mean, that's just my opinion, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Antoinette.
Just going along that, I was going through their presentation too, and when I was looking at it earlier, it didn't have a specific thing that it was asking for that money for. So kind of along the same ways where it's a necessary thing, but and in the future, I like specific asks of how we can help out, and it wasn't super specific in their presentation.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Weeb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would support Councillor Sparks' recommendation.
All right, thank you. And the 7,100 is split. That's considered for the 3 years also, was suggested, right? The original, Mr. Osmond?
Sorry, the original amount, what we had done was added up the 3 years and divided by 3.
Right, right. Yeah.
If I understood Councillor Sparks' suggestion was to just take the 11,200 divided by 2, that would be $5,600 increase
Right, right.
in 2026.
Okay, and I'm just going from memory, but I think like they do have their drivers' expenses, other maintenance, et cetera, right? So there's always ongoing things. So I'd certainly support the 7,100 if all are good with that as the original suggestion, but we got to come up with something. So yeah, okay. Straw vote for 7,100. Okay, well, straw. This is not actually motion. It's a straw vote format, but you're in. Yep. Okay, Councilor Firth. That would be, yeah.
Yeah.
5,600 would be the half of 11. Councilor Sorensen.
I would vote for the 5,600.
Okay, so that's the majority. So, all right, we'll go with that.
All right, the next one was the Taborn District Chamber of Commerce. Their request for 2026 was $5,000.
Any input on that from our chamber reps? Councillor Rumford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess to update them, like, they did purchase a building going forward. So I don't know if the request back in September when they brought this, they had that in the plan. So I think their increase is probably just a percentage increase based on their budget. So that's all I can give you.
Okay. Other thoughts? Councillor Wiebe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did any of these organizations send in updated plans? Because these are 6 months old, as to if any changes have been made to their budgets because they're so old. I don't know if they were asked to provide anything.
There was no request for updated information. I believe that Communities in Bloom did provide a letter updating their request, but it appeared to be very close to their original request.
All right, other thoughts? Reasonable number? Councillor Sorensen?
Yeah, I'd be okay to defer this if you say yes.
All right. You okay with that? Okay, we'll go with that.
Sorry, just for clarification, did Councillor Sorensen say to defer? Okay.
Did she say to defer? Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
Yeah, defer.
Okay. Oh. All right, so more on the deferring side? Yeah, okay.
Okay. The next operating business case was the Tabor Food Bank Society.
All right, Councillor Wiebe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel this is a conflict of interest for me, and I ask to be excused.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Antmek?
I'll just wait for Councillor Wiebe. Okay.
Pardon me?
I was just waiting for Councillor Wiebe to step
Yeah,
up. No, essential service, I approve giving what they ask. I think that's
Great,
a
thank
good
you.
essential need.
Yes, it is. Councillor Rumford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we even, I don't know if it was Councillor Sparks in this exercise, we actually increased it. So I'm fine with the increase of where it's at.
Okay, Councillor Firth?
Did we increase the ask from what they asked for? Okay.
Council had increased it by $500 to $2,740.
Okay. I would be in favor of promoting it, but at the amount that they had originally asked for. I don't think, if this is what they asked for, I don't think we need to be handing out more money than organizations have projected that they'll need. But I agree, that it's a needed service that, and the need continues to grow in our community, and I'm happy to support them at the amount that they're asking for.
All right. Other thoughts? I'm good with the original that we suggested to go to, the 27. Councillor Sparks, that was his
I
initial
would
suggestion, I believe.
support.
Councillor Sorensen?
I would support Councillor Firth and the original ask.
And go with the original? Sorry?
Yeah, go with the original.
Okay, so where are we at here? Councillor Antnek?
Yeah, no, just if I remember this discussion right, it was that we keep it at that 5,500 for the next 3 years though, because it was increased gradual, but we decided, well, let's just bump them up to that 55. And then for 2026, 2027, and 2028, it would be at that 5,500 total.
We're
What we
talking
give them.
2240 or 2700, right?
That's my memory of our discussion. So then going that, if we do the higher one, then we'll just keep it at that number for 2026, 2027, and 2028, correct?
Mr. Osmond?
So in general, with the community-related organizations, whatever the establishment is the starting of the conversation for the next budget year. So yes.
Right. Okay, so, Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had agreed to Councillor Sparks's idea of bumping it up, right?
Yeah.
But that makes it 3-3 in a straw vote, I guess, right?
Right,
So,
yeah.
I'm just looking at what, Councillor Iden brought that up. I think that was our discussion. They'd asked for 2250 and then they'd slowly moved it up. And that's why we had increased it, right?
Okay. Councillor Sparks?
I just comment.
I wish the town of Tabor had the funds to move this number up to 10,000. Okay, I really wish we did, because this is so, the impact on the food bank is getting more and more and more, and I just wish we had the funds to do much more than we are. But whatever council decides, I can support 100%.
All right, Councillor Atnock?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with doing the higher one as well. If I'm the fourth vote that way, I'm happy doing the higher one.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going back to what the Tabor Food Bank had, they had asked for 5,000 in 2026, 5,250 in 2027, and 5,500 in 2028. And I think we just decided to do the 2028 increase for them 3 years. That's where the number come from. We weren't just
No, okay.
I'm not to make Councilor First think, we weren't arbitrary and just moving it up their ask. We were just catching their 2028 ask. So, if it's a 3-3 vote to go forward, I guess, is it 3-3? Is that where we're at?
Well, it's Councillor Atnock, no, it's 4.
Oh, it's okay.
It's 4, yeah. So, but Councillor Sorensen had a question or comment
Okay.
also. Councillor Sorensen?
Just, I think we based one of our past decisions on just fulfilling what they're currently asking for. And so I think that we should follow that decision on moving forward with all of these asks.
Okay, so you're thinking about the original ask for what was, that was 5,000 originally? That's what you're suggesting?
So I think like the handy bus, right? We went back to what they originally asked.
Right,
You know, like if
Yep.
we're making a decision based on their current ask, we should do it for the rest of the
yeah, okay.
items on
I
this
got you.
spreadsheet.
So it was 5,000, is that correct, Mr. Osmond?
Sorry, yes, the increase of 2240, I believe, got them to 5,000.
Sorry, say that again.
The increase of 2,240 brought them to the $5,000 mark.
All total from what their
Yeah.
original one was, okay. So still 2240 ask.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, or increase, right, yeah. Okay, so we still have 4 at 2,700. Councillor Atnock,
Should we just do the straw vote and just see what it is?
at the 2,740? Okay. All right, we have the 4, okay, we'll go with the 2,740.
Okay, we should,
Yeah, just grab. Councillor Weeb. All right, everybody be back.
all right, the next operating business case is the final community-related organization, the Tabor Public Library. Their request was an increase of their annual amount of $3,376.
All right. Questions, comments? Councilor Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I never sat on the library board, but I sat on the Arches, Chinook Arches, right? And we got a very well-run library. I know from that. So I would be for promoting their ask. It's a pretty essential service to the population, in my opinion.
It is Councilor Firth.
Well, I would agree with Councillor Rumford that it is an essential service. Our total amount that we do contribute to the library is pretty significant. If we promote this increase, the total amount for the 2026 budget is $338,150. So, and I'm sure that it's needed. Increases are needed everywhere. But we also contribute to Chinook Arch as well. So that's another cost for libraries. I'm not sure if our per capita amount for Chinook Arch will be going up this year. So as much as it pains me to defer this one, I feel like this is one that we could defer this year.
All right. So just to clarify, this is roughly a 10% ask. Mr. Osmond?
1%.
You say it was, okay, sorry, what was the total that we pay out? Pardon me? 300. Okay, there we go. So 1%. All right. Okay. So other thoughts or comments? Councilor Weeb.
I
I
would,
think, sorry, I'll let Councillor Sorensen.
Councilor Sorensen, go ahead.
sorry for interrupting. I never know when to talk. I would also defer as I just feel that we've already discussed 2026 budget. We've already kind of planned even this fall, and to add items to this budget, I'm struggling with it. So unfortunately, I would defer this.
Okay. Councilor Weeb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do sit on the library board. I know that their funding has not increased through the province. But as Councillor first said, that is a significant amount. I know they offer a lot of programs, and I would like to say yes to this. But I think at this point, I would say defer and let's see where we're at.
Okay, that's the general consensus. Okay, all right. Okay.
All right. Moving into or moving out of the community-related organizations, the next business case is the asset management coordinator. Asset management has been a primary strategic goal of the organization for a number of years. This is a one FT position. It is a partially funded using an existing position, so there is a 0.6 FTE that is being moved into this. So the net is a 0.4 increase in FTE. The cost of the position would be $64,300.
All right. Councilor Firth.
I'm always hesitant to promote things that I know are going to be, like, we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is ongoing. This isn't just a one-time expense. But I think because of the importance of asset management and the benefit to the organization of having a good grasp on all of our assets and all of our infrastructure, I think it could potentially save us money in the future. And so I would be in favor of promoting this one.
All right, thank you. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this could go to administration. I know it's an annual thing. I guess once we build an asset management plan, like would it would just, I guess because we keep going on, the town's going to keep going on forever. That's why the job is forever. Or would it ever get to a point that it might not, I'm not saying not needed, but lessen? I'm just asking.
Mr. Tebow.
So that's not typically the case, even if you have an asset plan put together, which is a very good first step. There's an awful lot of work that's involved in maintaining that plan and doing all the calculations. And so, no, administratively, I would say, should it come to be, you're probably never going to go backwards on that unless you don't want to do something with assets anymore.
Yeah, I guess then to follow up, then I would promote it due to the fact that I imagine our assets are, like it will save us down the line is the goal. And I think that's a positive thing because we are going to be constantly growing. So I would be for promoting it.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Sparks?
Yeah, and I know this, I know this is something very, very important because of what we're trying to accomplish this evening as a council. I think that this position, if it was deferred for 1 year, I don't think there'd be much of a kickback on that. People complaining about that if it was deferred for a year. Yes, this is important, but I think that in my mind, this is something that can wait a small stretch of time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Councillor Sorensen, go ahead.
I was just wondering if we could just create the position which is for the grant funding. And I know it may take longer to reach the goal that we're trying to accomplish, but at least it would be something.
Mr. Tebow, I'm not sure I caught all that. Councillor Sorensen, I think at least I missed probably half of what you were saying there.
I'm just wondering if we can just make the position for only the grant-funded portion. Is this something Mr. Tebow can answer?
Oh, I see,
Can
okay.
it not be the 0.6?
All right, thank you. Mr. Tebow?
Councillor Sorensen, to your question, I understand it now. It is actually not a grant-funded position. That 0.6 exists in the organization. We have been it hasn't been a filled position. And so what we're doing is we're trying to lessen the impact on a full cost of an FTE by using this 0.6 and just asking council for the 0.4 difference to make it a full-time equivalent. But there is no grant funding for this position. That's not how the 0.6 came to be.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on that, Councillor Sorensen?
Then I would be okay in deferring the position to a future year.
Okay, all right. I would go along with that deferred for at least 1 year also, if we're good with that. Yeah, okay. Councillor Antlock?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just asking administration, obviously every line on here is important and it's brought to us for a reason. Is there something we're not seeing if we defer it for a year? If you could clarify.
Mr. Tebow?
Again, administration does try to stay out of this part of the game. But the reason it came forward is really because there was a specific ask by council. We don't want to be surprised by assets. So if I could explain where we are today, this happens not even kind of off the side of someone's desk. It's less than that today. So I guess if council would like to defer it, that's fine. I would ask council to not be surprised when the next surprise comes along. Not that this position can stop every single or prevent or predict every single thing, but we really don't have anyone doing this today. Blake is kind of our guy that has been doing this off the side of his desk, and we just can't continue to provide that. It's not sustainable the way it is. And so it's fine to be deferred. We don't have it today. We haven't had it for a long time, but it did come forward because it was a council request. So that's kind of why it's here.
All right, Councillor Renfro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And maybe this is to Mr. Egan. And Mr. Tebow. I believe this come out when we had with the clarifier. And there was some big things that kind of happened so we were really wanting to control the assets. So, not saying the person was going to make sure nothing breaks going forward, but it would have an idea so we could plan a little bit better. So I can agree with deferring it for a year. I'm glad it's in our back of our mind because it is necessary eventually.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
Yeah, you're correct, Councillor Remford. I think the clarifier was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. There was a few things that were surprises, some big dollar things, and that was the one that finally council went, okay, we need to look after things differently. So that is, you recall that correctly.
Some of those things are pretty hard to anticipate, right?
Some of them are really hard to anticipate, but when you're doing none of that work, you'll be anticipating none of it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're all on that page, I think. Okay.
All right, the next operating business case is the ASP for the Northwest. This is to update the ASP to align with the MDP and approve subdivisions of that area. The cost of that is approximately $10,000.
Area structure plan, that's what that stands for, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth.
I would be in favor of promoting this one. I think area structure plans are important. It's hard to approve development and make plans for growth when you don't have an overarching idea of what you want that area to look like. It's a one-time cost. I know it's $10,000, but I think doing it right the first time is cheaper than trying to do it over again a second or third time.
All right, thank you. Other comments? Councillor Sparks?
Yes, I agree with Councillor Firth. Because it is a one-time ask and the importance of an area structure plan, I can support this also.
Okay, all right, I would support that as well. It's, as you see, we're growing, there's definitely more of a need for that, so definitely a much needed item, I think. Anything else? We're good? All right, Councillor Sorensen?
Yeah, I would approve this.
Okay, all right. Move on with that, promote that one.
All right, the next business case is a privacy management program with the move away from FOIP to the new privacy regulation in Alberta. There's a significant amount of requirements, policy, bylaw updates, as well as training. This project was estimated at $35,000. The focus in 2026 would be the privacy impact assessment, policy and bylaw updates, etc., with training to follow in 2027.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
I think we don't have a lot of choice with this one. The legislation has changed, and if administration is telling us that they do not have the capacity to manage this massive changeover in-house, I think that we need to trust them and take them at their word. Again, this is a one-time cost, so there is some comfort in that. I don't know. $35,000 seems high to me, but I know that that is purely a budgeted amount, so I don't know. I guess we can hope that it comes in at less, but I think it probably needs to be promoted.
All right, thank you. Councillor Renfro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it goes to what the policies we should be keeping up with, I think it's to be promoted. I mean, how do you defer something that eventually you have to do, looks like, so.
All right, thank you. Just a question, Mr. Thibault. So would this get us 2 or 3 staff trained in a higher, at a higher level with the new changes?
There's a staff training component, but it's more building what was once one piece of legislation into 2 pieces of legislation, which has to be looked at with every policy that we have and every bylaw that we have. And so we're asking for an external person to look into all those things, provide back recommendations, which then would turn into training for the following year. That probably would be 2 staff, I'm guessing, that would get trained in that. That's the staff that occupy the space today in legislative services. So that's what it entails.
But this includes our staff too, not just somebody external.
Our staff would have to be part of this, but this isn't money going to our staff.
Yeah, oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah, I would believe that's also an essential service to keep up with that as necessary. I would be in favor of that. All right. Okay. Did I miss anybody? We're all on board with that? Yeah. Councillor Sorensen?
I'm in favor, but I do know operationally you should have a budgeted amount for training. I was just wondering if some of those monies had been thought about when coming up with this budgeted number.
I see. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Osmond.
Perhaps it's in the way I presented it. So this portion of the project, 35,000, is for the building, the plan, the privacy impact assessment, policy bylaw changes. It does not include the training component.
No staff.
So that's a project for a future year after those plans and pieces are in place.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I would approve it.
Sorry, say that again. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you for clarifying. I would promote it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I think we're all on the same page with that, right? Okay.
The next operating project was the replacement of the cemetery row markers. It was estimated that this project would be a cost of $18,000.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth.
Man, I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking tonight, but I think that this one, I know that some of the markers had been damaged, but I think that this is one we can defer to a future year.
All right, thank you. Councillor Upper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will agree with Councillor Firth on the deferring.
All right, thank you. We had some good discussion last time around. I think so. Councillor Sparks, go ahead.
And I would agree, and the numbers that were given to council previously on the replacement of these markers was just craziness for what it is. And as we defer this, I hope that maybe some of these markers may be able to be made in-house to help with the cost of this, because it was crazy what each one of these markers is costing the town of Tabor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I also agree, defer is necessary. So we're all okay with that? Okay, all right.
All right. The next one was cemetery tree and shrub removal, removing dead and or dying trees and shrubs at the cemetery. There was a conversation about what side of the cemetery, but I can't remember.
So just to
West.
clarify, this doesn't entail our own crew? This is like Pinnacle or somebody? That okay? Is our guys can't do that type of thing? These are the large size variety.
We do have a maintenance program. They do some of that work. In our very last windstorm, they were forced to do some of that work because it was, trees were blown over and things like that. But they're blowing over because we're unable to keep up with the maintenance of how many trees are out there and all that sort of stuff. So this was a project to try and play catch up with that. And we just don't have enough staff to look after all the tree trimming. We typically get called to boulevard trees and we look after the residents' on their streets and driveways and roadways before we get to the cemetery type stuff. So yes, we do have maintenance, but this is just playing catch up.
Beyond that, okay. All right, Councillor Sparks?
Just through to administration, I was just wondering if you're gonna trim these, and of course, some of them are gonna take out, what's the plan going ahead? Because those bushes and shrubs are there for a reason, to protect the cemetery from the farmland that's around there and all the debris blowing into the cemetery. That's why they're there. And I hope that someone has a plan that as those come out, what is the replacement? We would hate to put a chain link fence around there, then it will look like the chain link fence at Ken McDonald when the wind is blowing. And so even though these trees and shrubs are dying, we need to make sure we have a plan going forward that's going to be good for everything. Because as the farmer to the west has corn and things in there, we know what the ramification of our wind is. And so we need to make sure that we have a plan on what we're going to replace those trees and shrubs with that are going to benefit the cemetery. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, and I would agree with Councillor Sparks, but with respect, if they're dead, they're not doing their job either. So I think that this probably needs to be done. Again, it's a one-time cost. We're doing it I'm guessing, probably clean up every time there's a windstorm, because if they're dead, they're blowing over. And I think if we can do the bulk of it this year, then potentially we could see a decrease in maintenance moving forward, because if the dead stuff is cleaned out, it's a lot easier to maintain.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
I just wanted to let council know that you guys are right on track. We do have a urban forestry master plan that's being worked on right now. I believe it's March 31st when it's actually due to come back, and so that will provide council with the plan, and the cemetery is part of that urban tree studies, the whole town. So you will see something come your direction.
All right, it's just good maintenance requirements, and like I said, some extraordinary winds happening, so that's been a factor and definitely needed. Councillor Renfort?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm in favor of promoting it, especially with the plan going forward.
All right, I think we're all on the same page.
Can I just comment?
Councillor Sorensen, yeah, you go ahead.
I was just wondering if it's prudent for us to agree to this before looking at the plan once we receive it. Maybe we should just wait until that report comes back.
All right, Mr. Tebow?
Yeah, totally up to council. I think I don't know that we need a report to tell us the state of the existing trees or not. But we could certainly wait for the report to come back and revisit this, in the middle of the year, if that's what council would like to do. Yeah, so either way would work.
All right, any other thoughts on that? Councillor Rennick?
Just to put my opinion on it, I think it needs to be done. I think it's a good thing to do.
All right, Councillor Weed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Antonik. When I see the word hazardous in the statement, it makes me a little concerned. I wouldn't want anyone to get hurt as they're out in that area, so I would be in favor of promoting it.
Okay, so sticking with, going ahead with it? I believe, yeah, okay.
All right, the next operating business case was council media training. Since the preliminary budget deliberations, there was a revision to this. The original budget was $30,000. However, it was discussed after that meeting that the MD of Tabor is also participating in council media training. And so we would be able to connect together. And so that budget was revised to $10,000 as the cost to move ahead. So the question to council is whether this is a project they'd like to move ahead with at $10,000 partnered with the MD.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
I just wanted to provide a little more clarity. So the original 30,000 ask had a council component and an administrative training component. Our understanding was that this council, didn't really have a desire to go through that training. And the MD council did have a desire to do that, but they would pick up that portion of the cost. So this $10,000 is not to do with council getting that training, because we heard pretty clear that we didn't think you were interested in that. This is just the administrative portion of that training. So the MD would look after, the other half of this training from their side of the equation, for their council. Conversely, their administration didn't feel that they needed to have training over there, so it kind of worked out that their council yes, our council no, their admin no, and our admin yes. And so that's how we ended up revising, and that's what's in front of you today.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
I can comment that I would defer this.
Defer it, okay. Other suggestions? Councillor Firth?
I would normally be in favor of media training because I think it's one of those things that nobody thinks that you need until you have to talk to the media, and then you wish you had it. But I notice like we have several requests for communications and media things, and I think that this is one that we could probably defer.
Okay, I would also agree deferring is practical in this case here. Any other comments? Okay, we're on the same page. Okay, deferred it is.
All right, the next operating business case is communications specialist. This is a 1 FTE position. It includes all the cost of employment, including wages, taxes, benefits, as well as office setup. So those costs altogether are estimated to be at $107,300. There was a conversation in the original deliberations about whether that position could be considered at a 0.5 FTE. But we'll let council have its conversation about the proposal.
All right, thank you. Comments, questions, Councillor Firth?
I believe that this recommendation came out of our communications audit. I know it's needed. I know that our current communications department of 1 is stretched very thin and is performing well above what is expected of one person. But with this ask, and then also I'm jumping ahead to the centralized communication budget, but I think the two kind of go hand in hand. They are significant increases, and they are annual increases every year. And I don't feel comfortable. Again, it pains me to do it because I know that we need it, but I think that both of those could be need to be deferred this year and looked at in future years.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rumford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I can agree with Councillor Firth. Our communications has been great, and that's why it's hard for me to say defer it, but I will say defer it, and I know that puts more stress on that job, or keeps the stress on it. But I'm for deferring it.
All right, thank you. I'd also agree to defer is proper in this case. That's a big bill, and like I think Councillor Sparks indicated before, it's like it's a forever position scenario only going up. So I would go with deferring. Any other comments? Councillor Sorensen?
I would agree with our previous discussion that we would defer this to a future year.
Okay. Councillor Atnuck?
I hear the council. I think deferring is the option. Just have to say how amazing our communication department has been. And I'm not just going to say, hey, let's just put this aside, put on one person. I will admit that I don't even have much of a social media presence, but I've been trying to like more things. And if there's anything that as a council we can do, I think that's something that I know I can step up for sure on even the videos that are done, sharing them, resending, and I think we can do a better job. It's needed. It's hard. The budget is what it is, but I'll just publicly, I need to do better, and I hope people hold me accountable to that.
All right, thank you. So I believe that is a general consensus to defer.
All right. The next operating business case was the creation of a crisis communication plan. The budget proposed for that was $30,000.
Councillor Firth?
I think this one is necessary. A crisis communications plan is something that you don't think you need until you're in a crisis, and then everybody's scrambling. And as discussed, our current communications department is often stretched thin. So this is a one-time ask, so I have an easier time promoting this. And I think to be able to communicate during a crisis to the public internally it's crucial. So I would be in favor of promoting this one.
All right, Councillor Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Firth's comments. My only thing is, just to kind of jump ahead a little bit, I know we do not have a communications budget, right? And that would be the next line item. Is there any appetite that we put that into that budget? Like, think about that, like maybe defer the 30 and then think about it in that budget, kind of two birds, one stone thing. I was just trying to game plan that. If you guys had any, that was my thought.
Councillor Atnuck?
On this topic, I'm not sure I'd be a fan for deferring it in the way that it is something that we have no plan. It's not like we have an outdated one. We just don't have a plan. So nothing to go back on. So I'd be in favor of promoting this.
Councillor Weeb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be in favor of promoting this as well. Our current communications person is overworked, as already discussed, and if this would be useful to take something off of their plate as issues arise, then it might help a little bit with some of those asks.
All right, any other comments? Councillor Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was for promoting it. I was just trying to put it into something else. So I'll go with promoting it.
Councillor Everett?
Sorry.
Oh. Okay, so we have enough to go forward with that? Okay.
The next project, the centralized communications budget. So there exists within the budget a certain amount budgeted in individualized departments for communications projects. One of the things we did establish in 2026 was a budget function department for communications so that they would have a standalone budget on review of some of the projects that people were considering in departments with the communications manager. There was this piece came forward about establishing additional communications funds. The proposed amount was $148,750. In our previous deliberations, there was a conversation about a reduced amount, and we'll let council continue with its deliberations.
All right, thank you. Councillor Antnak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rob, when we did that number, it was just kind of like we were told part of that 148,750 would be if we hired a new communications employee, full-time employee. So is there a number that would be needed that would currently help our staff that we have now, or was that just an arbitrary number that we threw out there?
I believe the conversation that was had was that I think the conversation around the communications specialist and the additional communications budget were probably hand-in-hand pieces. So the 148,000 came from conversations with the individual departments about the communications that they would like to do in addition to what was being done. The budget would, or the activities would be tailored to the budget available. So there is existing communications money in departments for some things. But I think this was a conversation about additional pieces that the departments wanted to consider.
Councillor Firth.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to centralizing the communications budget, but I am not in favor of an increase. Because again, like Mr. Osmond said, I think if we lack capacity within the department, then increasing the budget doesn't make sense. But it does make sense to me to have our communications manager in control of the communications budget. So if we were to pull those communications budgeted amounts out of each department and centralize it, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I believe that this amount is the increase. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would not be in favor of promoting the increase, but I would be in favor of deferring the increase, but centralizing the existing communications budget, which I know is not part of this exercise, but.
Yeah, that's a real big number. I'm not in favor of that at all. I'd look to defer that as well. Councillor Renford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will totally agree with Councillor Firth's comments. I was going to try to say that. I was hoping I would say it as good as you said it, but I think we go with the existing. And if there is something that comes up, obviously that is in that budget, I mean, we'll look at it through the year. So I would defer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thibault.
Just part of the conversation to speak to Councillor Antonuc. There was a conversation about this money would be in consort with an additional person. And so without the additional person, it's virtually impossible to spend $148,000 and some dollars. It was the original intent to centralize this. And so you're not off base. We did talk about this money was to support a secondary position. There is initiatives in here that, directors and departments decided that they wanted to have. But again, it is extremely difficult to ask the one person to continue to do even more money doesn't really help more capacity.
Right, all right. Thank you. So I believe we're all on the same page with that, correct? Yeah. Okay, all right.
All right, operating business case number 16 is the land development function surplus. What administration had put together here was essentially a 3-year plan to address the surplus coming out of the land development function that had been incorporated into taxation. It's designed to recover $2.2 million, $2.3 million over the course of 3 years with the 2026 value at $800,000.
Councillor Firth.
I hate that number. I know hate is a strong word, but But I don't think we have any other option. We can't keep kicking this can down the road. It's going to have to get fixed at some point. And so I think we just bite the bullet and get it done. So I would be in favor of promoting it. Well, not in favor, but reluctantly in favor, I guess.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rufford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree to promote it.
Okay, and what exactly, Mr. Tebow, are we going to get out of that? What's the goal with that? Kind of a,
Yeah, I can maybe tackle that for you. So essentially where we are at right now is in 2025, there was a surplus from the land development function in the budget that was incorporated into the tax calculation. So the goal of this program would be to remove that piece that was built into the tax rates off the tax rates, because land development, land sales is a very volatile number, and that's okay. We budget for it as best we can. The difficulty is we don't want it attached to taxes because of its volatility. When that number goes up, it provides big boosts. If it's attached to taxation, that will allow for increased spending or tax decreases. But when those land sales are no longer there in those years where it's lower, or maybe we see none, then that impact, we have to find another way to fund that when it's been incorporated into taxes. So the goal of this program is to take that money out of the tax calculation to insulate taxation from that volatility. And then the future proceeds from land development, once they're extracted from the tax calculation, would simply flow to reserves.
all right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would further support that by saying this is a way to stabilize your taxation base, because land is not a stable, sustainable income or revenue source. And so this, while it's painful, does actually give us a stable something and replaces something that is not a stable revenue source.
All right, thank you. Yeah, big number, geez. That's going to impact things a lot. I don't know, I think I'm leaning towards a deferral. Councillor Weeb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Firth. I don't like the number, but I think it's something that I would be in favor of promoting this year.
Right, anything else? Councillor Sorensen?
I would just like to say that we have to promote it. It's a Band-Aid we have to rip off, and we need to pay it back and add it to our reserves.
Okay, promoted it is. Councillor Rufford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess to Mr. Osmond, can I shine some sunlight on it? If our land sales do well, that will increase our reserves, and it'll be great.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. So once land sales are not associated with land tax calculation, then yeah, your land sales, when you have big land sales years, those proceeds would flow into your reserves, which will help address one of our other priorities. Right.
Okay.
All right. So with that item behind us, maybe a spoonful of sugar to help that one. We had a conversation about an M&E tax strategy. The concept here was that in 2026, we would look to internally develop a long-term strategy to eliminate the M&E tax. That's machine and equipment tax. Because that strategy, or because the strategy would be developed in 2026 and it would be done internally, there is no cost to promoting that item.
So it's a $0 increase for that. Okay, well, that's a no-brainer. I guess I don't have to struggle with that. Okay. Councilor Renfro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would love there to be no M&E, but the strategy of getting rid of it in this tax year, I think, is it's not going to work. So I'm totally for keeping it at 0.
All right, that went well. So the last operating business case we have to look at in terms of light switch exercise is the financial reserve framework. So we did have a conversation about our reserves. We've had this conversation lots in the past year that our contributions to reserves are currently not quite at the average draw on our capital reserves. And so in terms of developing a reserve framework, we want to find a way to build those contributions to reserves so that they are more significant than the draw, which will help us to build our overall reserves. The proposal here was to increase the reserve contribution by approximately 1% of our overall target. So looking at that, it would be an increase of 252,700, and that amount is for council's consideration. And the idea would be to, over time, continue to build that contribution until we are making a contribution that's going to get us to our targeted reserve piece, which we've estimated to be at about 10% of our asset value.
All right. Councilor First.
Thank you. Just like personal finances, it's prudent to save when you can, and having reserves is important. And I think we need a plan to grow them. It needs to start somewhere. And so I think this is a way to gradually increase our reserves without having it be a huge impact in 1 year. So got to start somewhere. I wouldn't be opposed to maybe if we want to have some discussion about altering that amount. I'm comfortable promoting that amount, but open to hearing what other people have to say.
All right, thank you. Councilor Sparks.
Yes, thank you. I'm a big fan of reserves and putting money into reserves. I'm also a fan of round numbers. So I've just thrown out there 250,000.
All right, thank you. Councilor Renfro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going to the two previous councilors' comments, yes, reserves is great. This is an exercise, so I would say to promote it. I mean, this would be one if the rate was somewhere where we didn't feel we could manipulate the number or defer it. So I would say in this start of the exercise, we should promote it. And I agree with the 250 number.
250 even. Okay, Councilor Anlock.
Yeah, I agree with the other three councillors. If we're already spending more than we're putting in, we need to put more in.
All right, 250 is the ask scenario. Okay.
Can
Councilor
I
Sparks.
comment?
Sure, you go ahead.
I just remember last year that our number was closer to 450. And so we're actually lowering, that amount quite substantially. So I wouldn't be opposed to increasing it to at least meeting our goal, which was last year, I think was $450,000, but maybe administration can answer that.
All right.
Yeah, so I think I can help clarify some of those numbers. So our total contribution to reserve last year was about $1.8 million. Now, at the time of the final budget approval and taxation, there was an additional amount that So council was essentially having the conversation around assessment inflation. And so there was a portion of that that was used to provide the 10.5% tax decrease. And then the remaining portion, which I believe Councillor Sorensen is correct, was about $450,000. We did contribute that in addition to the 1.8 million that we had in the budget. So yeah, this number is simply a plug number, but yeah, if we wanted to say, okay, the assessment change that we're seeing in 2026 is similar to 2025, and we'd like to keep that additional contribution the same. $450,000 would be approximately the additional that council put into the reserves last year.
All right, Councillor Sparks?
Yes, and I understand what everyone's saying. It would be easy for us this year to put $450,000 into reserves if we didn't have to deal with line number 16.
Right. Okay, so the general consensus, I believe, was the 250 even? Pardon me? We're good with that? Yeah, okay.
All right. So that brings us to the end of the light switches. So we'll just, I'll run through kind of where we sit for council. So when we incorporate all the switches that council has set, along with the property assessment inflation, what we're looking at, the tax, the overall tax impact as a percent is 0.61%. When we look at our residential tax comparators, the first one is our average residential property. The municipal portion of the taxes, man, I wish I could get this on one screen. That's closer. There we go. So our average residential home had approximately a 9.82, sorry, it is a representative of what we believe to be an average residential home. This particular property saw a 9.82% increase in their inflation, or in their assessment. For the municipal property tax as proposed, we would see a $260 increase in the municipal tax component, or a 9.17% increase in that value. When we look at the effects of provincial school tax as well as the senior housing requisition, it brings the overall total to 9.646%, which is a total increase of $368, of which approximately 29% is coming from the provincial school requisition and 70% from the municipal property tax increase. So if we look at this over a monthly, we'd be talking about approximately $30 a month increase on the average residential home. So that's where it sits. The light switch exercise, as council just set those switches. So the conversation for council now is whether this particular position is comfortable and council is prepared to proceed with the operating budget with these light switches, or if this is not where council is comfortable, then the conversation is we loop back up to the light switches and find if there are any of those light switches that council is prepared to turn off or adjust the value of. So really it becomes at this point a conversation of, if this isn't quite the right combination for council to find its comfort with the operating budget, then we need to figure out which one of these switches needs to be adjusted for council to get that level of comfort.
All right, any questions, comments? Councillor Rufford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess to Mr. Osmond or Darren, Mr. Tebow. So I'm looking at some of these is like roughly a 9% increase on the municipal end. So we did lower it last year, a little over 10%, 10 point something. So in a sense, we're not totally going back to where we were. So we would, does that make sense? Is that where I'm at?
So for clarification, this number here, the overall tax impact as a percent, that was the number last year that was negative 10.5. So it is still negative at 0.6%. But when we look at that municipal property tax change, that 9.15 is representative of the inflation change as well. So it's the municipal impact was down 0.6, but because of the 9.8% increase in assessment, that gives you that 915. That's what it's coming from.
And one of the bigger pushes of that percent increase is us getting away from non-reliable, income on our budget.
Absolutely. Once council approves its operating budget, one of the things administration does is it sits down and starts developing the messaging around the highlights of what council's decided. And certainly with the light switches that are set here, there's an $800,000 decision to do exactly that, move away from those unsustainable revenue sources to stabilize taxation. There's also a $250,000 increase in the contribution to reserves. So both of those speak to long-term stability factors around taxation.
So I just keep going. The philosophy of staying away from non-reliable income would be that if we kept on that philosophy, in 1 year it went down lots, we would have a bigger rate increase. So at least we are planning with that line item 16 that nobody likes. At least this council, if agreed on that number, and with administration is at least planning to keep the rate stable rather than have a fluctuating rate, right?
That's exactly it. So the goal here is to move away from those non-stable revenue sources, so that when we build our budget, we're talking about good, stable revenue sources, and we don't have those flexibilities, because you're exactly right. You don't want to be in a situation where you have one of those unstable sources, that tax rate depends on that number evaporates 1 year, and then you've got to fix it all with taxation. So we want to get those unstable pieces out of the calculation, so you have good stability.
And keeping them unstable out of the equation, if they stay high or do well, it goes right into our reserves, which is a benefit, a double benefit.
That's exactly correct.
Not sure I completely understand that $800,000 figure there to get away from this here. So why is that costing us exactly that guesstimate?
So in 2025, there was a portion of land sales budgeted was incorporated into the tax calculation. So going forward, because the land sales fluctuate because of their unstable revenue source, if that revenue was to go away, and because it's incorporated in the taxes, you'd have a direct tax impact from that change. So that $800,000 is us taking $800,000 that was previously funded through land sales, moving it back to taxation so that we don't have that unstable revenue source.
Putting it back to taxation.
That's right.
But again, how does that cost us? I'm missing that.
So it's essentially a change in funding source. So it moves right now, there's $800,000, there's $2.3 million worth of municipal expenses that are being funded through land sales.
Right.
And we want that to be funded through taxation so that we don't have that instability factor. So we need to move it off of land sales into there. The offset being when we experience those land sales in the future, we can move that revenue direct to reserve.
All right, Mr. Tebow?
To put it another way, Mr. Mayor, if we had $0 for land sales,
Mhm.
that $2.3 million would need to be found through the taxpayer in 2027, for example. So, or in this year, in 2026, if we had 0 land sales, that
Yeah.
means we don't have the tax dollars we need to run our captured from the taxpayer. So instead of waiting for that problem to, because it will happen, 1 year we won't sell the land that is supporting it today. Then we have to tell the taxpayer we've got $2.3 million that we need from them, as opposed to 800 this year.
This is about a 6% or 6.5% hit, roughly, with that $800,000, right?
You're pretty close at that number, yeah.
So I'm just trying to think, how do I, or any of us for that matter, try to sell this to our ratepayers? I'm having a hard time selling this to myself. As far as I understand what you're saying about the need, but I'm just saying that kind of a hit is like, it's huge. You know,
You're not wrong. I think I'll be fairly candid, Mayor. You're not going to be able to sell a $2.3 million shortfall to your taxpayer, or anything beyond. This is a big number right now, and it's an uncomfortable number for sure. And administration is no more comfortable than council is seeing or looking at this number, staring at this number. But I guarantee you, you'd be a lot less comfortable if you have to tell the taxpayer and you have no choice. Right now we have a choice. It doesn't have to be 800,000.
right, that's what I'm saying. So does it, what about if we reduced it over time, so on a 5-year, 6-year plan kind of thing?
Again, yes, you can. What that means, though, is that we have to sustain land sales, a revenue source that we don't know that we can sustain for a lot longer. That's the pickle that it puts us in. So if we kick that can down the road a little bit and we say it's 500 this year, and we end up with no or less than
Yeah.
budgeted land sales, it's going to hit the taxpayer in their pocket no matter what. And so that's why administration has proposed a 3-year plan, because we do know that we have some good land sales for 2026. We don't know what we have for 27, and we certainly don't know what we have for 28. And so the unknown to administration is a little more scarier than the known.
I'm just trying to put that in perspective. Last year we were 2.4 for the average. Now we're talking 9 something. And I don't believe we've gone over 4 in the last, how many years, on an average home, right? 4%.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah. I mean, we weren't in this position at
Yeah.
that point in time either.
Right. So I guess saying we have, say we have 5 more good years of land sales, we don't know that either, right? It could go that way. It's like a gamble. But if we do, then we're okay. To do it over a longer term, right? If that should be the case. But
Yep, that's true.
Mr. Osmond?
Just a small clarification about that 2.4 that we saw as the bottom corner percent change last year.
Right.
So that was 2.4 when the municipality gave a change of negative 10.5%. So there was
Yeah.
a 10.5% decrease in the municipal taxation that was given back to the ratepayer. And so that affected the bottom corner. But again, this year, we have seen similar assessment change. The provincial school tax requisition increased by a similar amount of approximately 15%. And so when we see those impacts, that's the difference between the 2.4 we saw last year and the 9.4 we're seeing here, is that that difference was primarily municipal taxation that was returned to the taxpayer.
Right. Yeah. But we're seeing somewhere in the 7%, 8% in the big cities, Lethbridge, Calgary, that's the kind of the trend here. But for us to be at 9 plus, like, wow, that's really difficult. Councilor Renfro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. going back to Councilor First's comment about this line item, it is, it is expensive. However, if land sales stay good, all that money will go into reserves. The money will not be put somewhere else. I understand. Then at least we're being proactive in that unreliable income. If we don't, yes, the taxpayer will pay a less rate this year. If we don't. However, if land sales stay good, it will still be going into reserves, and we can work on into the next budget and into the next budget and try to keep it. But to keep it, the tax, like I guess, can we just take it out to see where it would be at? I mean, obviously we can do that as light. But then that's, the only worry about that is if we don't make that number, right, we're going to have to get it the next year and that it compounds. At least we're being prudent. I know a taxpayer might say, well, I would like to pay as less as I possibly can. But then that means in 1 year, the increase could be so big that it would be unswallowable.
So,
right?
yeah. So to help illustrate, I temporarily put the land development function piece as deferred. That removed the 800. So the impact now is a 7.3% decrease in overall tax impact. The municipal component on our average residential home is increasing 1.8%, and the bottom corner is a 4.08%. Now, but I think if I could reinforce what the CAO had shared, is that in this case, there's now $2.3 million that is of tax of expenses tied to an unsustainable revenue source. And if in 2027, although we are not forecasting for it to go to zero, if your land sales dried up and went to zero, in 2027, you'd have to recover all $2.3 million. Whereas if we have that 800,000 on, have that same scenario, you would only be recovering $1.5 million. So that's the significant piece here. The goal is to make sure that recovery happens before your good land sales years kind of dry up on you.
Mr. Tebow.
I was just going to ask Rob to do exactly what he did, just to show what that tax number would look like for council. So,
Councilor Firth.
While it would be nice to be able to defer that and to not deal with it, it's not responsible to look at each year in isolation when it comes to taxes. We need to be responsible for the finances of the organization as a whole this year, but moving forward. And we need to plan for what we know, not just cross our fingers and hope that land sales will continue to sustain this subsidy to taxation. It's not responsible. It's not financially responsible.
All right, Councilor Asnut.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that although it's hard, I am in support of putting the 800,000 to it because we got to chip away at that 2.3 million. To me, it's a necessity. We can't be caught not prepared.
Councilor Sparks.
I'm not sure what to say because, to be honest with you, I'm just vibrating right here, right now, because I totally agree with Councilor Firth. But the reason we're at where we're at tonight is because of how that 800,000 got there. Number one, how it got there is a major player in all this. And also a 10.5% decrease in taxes. And I am not pointing the finger at a previous council in the least, because they made a decision, the best decision possible with the numbers that were presented to them. And they made a decision on those numbers. It's not their fault. They just did that. Wrong as the numbers may have been, maybe not wrong, but missing some key components to that situation. Okay? And so that's where we're at. I hate that number because unfortunately, the residents of the town of Tabor have to eat that number through taxation. And it's very unfortunate, but that's where we're at this day. And we have to try to lessen the impact on our residents the best we can. But because of whatever happened in the previous, we have to carry on and do the best we can and go from there.
All right, Councillor Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up with Councillor Sparks said, the upside of the 10% decrease last year is that went to the taxpayers. Like, they did benefit from that. So having some unsustainable revenue in the 2025 budget did lower taxes or keep taxes at a lower rate. Now, the problem with that is, like Councillor first mentioned, it's not financially responsible to do that. So I'm for this philosophy being a 3-year project of 800, 700, right? Which will help rather than, I guess we could put $2.3 million on that line item and promote it, and it would work. However, that would be hard. It's too hard on everybody, on taxpayers this year. So we are making a financial plan that will help. And like I said, if sales, all we're doing is increasing our reserves, which will only help this town.
All right, Mr. Tebow.
Rob, just as an exercise for me, could you put that number to fix the problem in 1 year? And that show us the tax number for that?
So if we change the promoted number to $2.3 million, what we see in the municipal tax side is an increase of 23%, bringing your bottom corner to 19.55%. This particular property would be paying an additional $760 per year. And if you've seen that, I'd like to take it away.
Can I just comment?
Councillor Sorensen, yep, go ahead.
So I think again, we're trying to fix a problem that we can't really fix today. I think when it comes to budget 2027, there's going to be some hard discussions moving forward. Obviously, our expenses are not matching our revenue. And, you know, like something has to happen to level the playing field, whether we raise our taxes by 10% or we really look at the operating expenses of the town and really make some tough decisions. So, you know, today's just something we have to deal with, move on, move forward, and then there'll be some tougher decisions moving forward.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sorensen. Councillor Adnock.
I apologize as we're rating it. I also have somewhere to be at 7. So if there is something, some type of conclusion, or if I need to step out, I have somewhere to be at 7.
All right. Well, if you have to go, you have to go. I believe Councillor Weeb also had to go here. So, Mr. Tebow, anything else you're in?
I don't think there's anything more to explain or go through, Rob.
Yeah, so I think if the general consensus is that this particular light switch combination has left council in a position where they would be comfortable with this as the operating budget, then the next step in this process would be to make a motion to adopt this as the 2026 operating budget. If council is not in that place yet, and it takes some additional deliberation. The activity would be to go back up through those light switches and see what adjustments need to be made to get to that level of greater comfort. So I can appreciate that with people having other commitments to move to, we may not have time to move into that additional deliberation tonight, unless we're going to do it with not everybody at the table. But perhaps the question is just to see if council is prepared to move forward with this operating budget scenario.
All right, Councilor Renfro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess to administration, if we decided to just take a motion and take this for information, would that be an option? And then we wouldn't have to even make a motion for that? We would just,
No, just come up for next meeting.
okay. I just thought I could do that,
Yeah,
if that
well,
helped.
You could, I guess, saying that, but no, Mr. Tebow, that's right. It could just be set for,
So what we have is the recommendation that Rob discussed was we're happy with what we see, we're comfortable with what we see, and we'll adopt it. Or there is an alternative that accepts this for information and does consideration at a future council meeting. And so if people have to go and we're not in a place where we're comfortable, then the alternative is there.
okay, all right, thank you, Councilor Renfro.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make that motion that council accept the report on the 2026 operating budget and the 2027-29 budget forecast for information, and further that administration prepare the following information for consideration at a future meeting of council.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Just ask for motion to close the meeting, please. Councilor Adamnak, motion on the table to close. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you.